On this week's Vaticano, Pope Francis addresses Brazil's World Cup participants, urging greater fraternity to result from the Games. We get details of the Pope's upcoming trips to the Balkans, Sri Lanka, and maybe even Mexico. Also, a look at other events from the Pope's busy schedule, including a special visit to the poor of the city. And meet this Catholic Palestinian, the woman in the Vatican's delegation for the Invocation for Peace in the Holy Land. All this, plus, in honor of Pope Francis, Spanish lessons are now being offered in Vatican departments. And meet Sr Cristina, the young nun evangelizing Italy through her song, coming up on Vaticano. Within the World Cup now underway, at the Vatican, eyes are also on Brazil, even those of the Pope. He sent a video message to participants as the tournament began.
My hope is that, in addition to the feast of sports, this World Cup becomes the feast of solidarity among peoples. In order to win, it is necessary to overcome individualism, selfishness, all forms of racism, intolerance, and instrumentalization of the human person. It isn't only in football that being greedy is an obstacle to the success of the team, because when we are greedy in life, ignoring the people around us, all of society is harmed. The secret of victory in the field, but also in life, is to learn to respect the other team members, but also our opponents. No one wins alone, neither in the field or in life. Let no one feel excluded or isolated. Pay attention. No to segregation, no to racism. May this World Cup take place with complete serenity and tranquility, always with mutual respect, solidarity, and brotherhood among men and women who recognize themselves as members of the same family.
Solidaridad e una fraternidade entre homens e mulheres que se reconhecem membros de una única familia.
Meanwhile, the Vatican's Department for Culture and Sport is paying close attention. Monsignor Melchor Sanchez is rooting for his native Spain, but also for peace.
During the 3 weeks of the World Cup, the world will stop and watch TV. Perhaps half of the world will be watching TV. And in some way, wars and fightings cease and make us dream of a peaceful world, a better world. I think this is also already positive. And also joy and the pleasure of playing. And the Bible presents the creative wisdom as a girl playing with the earth ball.
The Pope himself is a big soccer fan. Chances are good that he'll be following his home team Argentina throughout the World Cup. Pope Francis is solidifying his reputation as a missionary pope. He's been to Brazil and the Holy Land now. In addition to his coming trip to Korea in August, he announced on Trinity Sunday he will be visiting Mother Teresa's motherland, Albania.
Today I want to announce that, accepting the visit of the bishops and of the Albanian civil authority, I intend to go to Tirana on Sunday, September the 21st. With this short trip, I would like to confirm the faith of the Church in Albania and to witness my encouragement and love for a country that has long suffered as a result of the ideologies of the past.
He also recently revealed plans to visit Sri Lanka and the Philippines in January of next year. He will be the third pope to visit Sri Lanka after Paul VI in 1970 and John Paul II in 1995.
I think the day that Pope Francis became Pope, our Cardinal, when he greeted at the first time, he told Pope Francis, "You must come to Sri Lanka." Then he said, "Yes, I am coming." From that day, our Cardinal is following Pope Francis, and every time we are meeting him, we are insisting on that he should come. Then finally he said, "I am coming."
And that's not all. When Pope Francis met with Mexico's president earlier this month, he was invited to go there as well.
It was an invitation that was accepted by the Pope. They will have to decide on the date when it is appropriate to fit into the Pope's agenda. But the fact that the Pope has accepted to go to Mexico is a huge reason for Mexicans to be joyful. Because we should remember that in 1979 we had the first visit of a pontiff, John Paul II. He visited our country on 5 occasions.
There's still one major invitation the Pope hasn't set in stone. He's been invited to the USA for the World Meeting of Families in September 2015. Organizers are still hoping for a positive response. Pope Francis received Italy's oldest volunteer organization, the Misericordiae, or Mercies, on Saturday, June 14 at St. Peter's Square. He encouraged them to continue their concrete works of mercy.
We have lots of information and statistics on poverty and human trials. There's the risk of being well-informed and disembodied spectators of this reality, or to make nice speeches that conclude with verbal solutions and a disengagement from the real problems. Too many words, too many words, too many words, but nothing is done. This is a risk. It isn't yours. You work very well, but there is the risk. When I hear some conversations between people that know the statistics, what an outrage, Father, what an outrage. But what do you do about this outrage? Nothing. I talk, and this doesn't resolve anything. We've heard so many words. Working is what is useful, your work, Christian testimony, going to the suffering, to come close as Jesus did. Let us imitate Jesus. He goes on the streets and has not planned for there to be poor, sick, disabled that he encounters along the way. But he stops with the first one that he encounters, turning into a presence that helps us, a sign of the nearness of God, who is goodness, providence, and love.
Then the next day, he visited the Basilica of Our Lady in Trastevere, one of Rome's oldest churches built in the 3rd century. Before entering the church, he took his time to greet hundreds of people gathered outside. There, he met with the St. Egidio community. He told them to focus on prayer, the poor, and promoting peace. He asked them to combat the throwaway culture.
Children are disregarded. No children. Let us think only to the birth rate of children in Europe, in Italy, Spain, France, and elderly who are thrown away, with attitudes of a form of euthanasia hidden behind. They're not needed, and that which is not needed is thrown away. He who doesn't produce is thrown away, and the crisis is so big today that youths are being thrown away. When we think that these 75 million young people aged 25 and below that are in the neither nor generation, neither work nor study, they're without. It happens today in this tired Europe, in this Europe that has gone tired. It is not aged, no, it is tired. It doesn't know what to do. One of my friends asked me a while ago, why don't I speak about Europe? I set a trap for him. I told him, have you heard of how much I've spoken about Asia? And he realized it was a trap. I speak today of Europe. Europe is tired. We have to help it rejuvenate itself, to find its roots. It is true, it has negated its roots, but we have to help it find them again.
Then, on June 16, he met with the Archbishop of Canterbury of the Church of England. They prayed together for unity in the Vatican Chapel of Urban VIII. He also met with the new ambassador of Chile and urged participants in the Joint Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace and Catholic Relief Services Conference on the economy to put the good of man, not money, at the center of their discussions. Later that evening, he met with diocesan laity to talk about the pastoral care for the Diocese of Rome. He told them that the church needs to be a mother, not, open quote, a well-organized NGO with a bunch of pastoral plans, end quote. Stay with us. After the break, the Pope's Charity Department is looking at improving the lives of South American indigenous, and meet a Catholic Palestinian, the only female Vatican representative, at the Invocation for Peace. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. The Pope's Charity Department has approved funding for 125 new humanitarian and church aid projects. Works like this chapel built in Guatemala last year. Through a foundation called Populorum Progressio, they will be improving lives of the needy throughout Latin America and the Caribbean.
We need to insist on reaching our people that are being disregarded by society. That culture of waste, of which Pope Francis speaks often. He told us that our foundation needs to worry more about children, elderly, and especially about young people that are being each time more and more disregarded by society because they don't find sources of work. They don't have perspectives for the future. They remain with a very negative and pessimistic vision of life. We have to help our youth, on the one hand in giving them hope to become aware of their value as a person, as human beings, and if they're Christian, even more so. But we also need to provide them with material goods, even if they are little, so that they can organize themselves, so that in this way they can have some self-help, and that they look for new ways, that they look for new initiatives and ventures. Those micro-enterprises that are being formed in many parts of America are crucial, not just as sources of work, but also as sources of bringing greater awareness to our youth of the value they have and the importance on having principles, values, and visions of society that encourage them to go forward in life.
The Pope's charity department, Corunum, manages this program. It met for 3 days to decide how to award $1.8 million worth of assistance.
Olha, com dificuldade, mas eu penso que não há diocese que não tenha.
I believe there is no diocese that doesn't have that outreach of social assistance and working with the poor. If we leave out the poor people from there, we would leave the majority of our poor. So people think this, that is a very vast field, that people work a lot, but that they are just starting. I believe the most important thing is working in education. If we're not able to promote people and give them dignity and help them find work, then we will have given very little to the poor.
Ajudá-las a se posicionar e se encontrar, nós estaremos dando muito pouco para o povo.
The 22-year-old foundation focuses on helping indigenous, mestizo, and rural African American communities in Latin America and the Caribbean. During this week's general audience, Pope Francis began a series of weekly catecheses on the Church. This time, he spoke about God's relation with his people.
Today, I begin a series of catecheses on the Church. It's like a child that talks about his mother or his family, because the Church isn't an NGO, nor should it be restricted to the clergy and the Vatican. We are all the Church. The Church is a very vast reality, open to all humanity, and with a very old history. It was founded by Christ, but it has its roots in the Old Testament. I would like to stress 3 points about this history. The first thing that stands out is that God didn't call Abraham alone at the beginning, as an isolated individual, but he also received his family and his servants. He wanted to form a people so that it would spread his blessing throughout the whole earth. Secondly, it is Abraham who calls his people. It isn't human work which asks for God's blessing, but rather it's God who takes the initiative. His love is the key to everything. The third point is that despite placing us on the correct path, like with Abraham, we often fail. We resist. It's the story of God's fidelity and the people's infidelity. It is God's patience which, like a father with his son, never gets tired of educating or forgiving his son. Recognizing ourselves as sinners allows us to welcome his mercy. This helps the Church grow. And not our own merits, but rather the daily experience of God's love.
No por nuestros méritos, sino por la experiencia cotidiana del amor de Dios.
June 8 will go down in history as the day Pope Francis implored God for peace with the presidents of Palestine and Israel. Each brought delegations of individuals with their own experiences and hopes. There was only one woman there with the Vatican delegation, a Palestinian Catholic, born and raised in Haifa, Israel, now living in Rome. She prayed the prayer of St. Francis in Arabic, there in the Vatican gardens.
It was a great grace to be present in this prayer, because I have lived in the Holy Land most of my life, And to arrive here and to see that we were praying all together, Jews, Muslims, Palestinians, Israeli, to invoke peace, that meant to me that we have really to believe in it. And it's not a work of people, but it's a work of God. And that this gift can be only granted by God, because it's only Him that can change our hearts. And if we change our hearts, we can change our relationship. We can believe in peace more.
She obtained a bachelor's degree in Jewish studies in the United States. In 2001, she was appointed delegate of the Catholic Focolare movement in Israel and Palestine. But life for her has not always been easy.
Being a Christian and living in the Holy Land, it's a great challenge, because the Christians are the minority. In Israel there are more than 7 million people, which 80% are Jewish population, 20% are Arab, and only 2% of these are Christians. So it's a great challenge to be a Christian and to live our own faith. But I think we have a message to give also in this land. If we live it according to our scriptures and according to the gospel, I think we can really be this oil between these two religions.
يا رب اجعلني أداة لسلامك فأضع الحب حيث البغض والمغفرة حيث الإساءة.
It's also a great challenge because many Christians leave the Holy Land. And it is sad to see that, because I think the Holy Land is for all of us. And as Christians, we have a message to give to the world. And to be there, it's very important to be in the land of Jesus. But we cannot stop people of immigrating because they feel that they have to immigrate because they don't see future for their children, and they want to be in a place which is safe, which they have future for the future generation. But I wish that these people, wherever they can be, they can testimony their Christian faith and be instrument of peace in other part of the world that can bring peace also in the Holy Land.
And that's the ultimate hope of Pope Francis' unprecedented invocation for peace. Stay with us after the break. Spanish becomes the language of the Vatican, and find out what a nun is doing to evangelize in Italy. Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano. The Holy See has signed an agreement with a renowned Spanish institute to teach Vatican officials the Pope's mother tongue. 4,759 officials will be able to learn Spanish from the Instituto Cervantes at the Vatican. The Secretary General of the Vatican Governorate and the director of the institute, both Spaniards, signed the deal on June 4.
It was really a very important occasion for us. The Vatican, the Holy See, it is a capital, the spiritual capital of 1,000 people, more than 1,000 people in the world. And for sure, for us to offer our services to the city, to Vatican, it is a privilege. We will organize courses of Spanish there, and also organize the exams for the Spanish degree. And this is a really important occasion for us. For sure, many of the employees of the Vatican want to listen, want to read the Holy Father in his language, but also want to attend the perhaps the millions of pilgrims and also the visitors who come each year to the Vatican, to Rome. So they want to attend them in their own language. The Instituto Cervantes is an organization of the Spanish government within the Secretary of the Foreign Office, and that has the main objectives spreading, teaching outside, abroad, Spanish language and culture, and also to share the common heritage with the Latin American countries. We offer courses, Spanish courses, some of them general courses, intensive ones, specific, like Spanish for business, Spanish for healthcare, and also the official exam for the degree of Spanish as a foreign language, the DEALE, the Diploma of the Español como Lengua Extranjera. On the other hand, we also make some cultural activities in arts, literature, design, cinema, music. So we are very enjoyed with our work.
Yo me ocupo de la parte, digamos, más visible, porque son los cursos.
I am in charge of the most visible part, the courses and the certifications. The Spanish courses that we organize here are two types. General courses in which students learn from the beginning until they get to the level that they wish, and special courses that are not level after level, but rather courses that aim at deepening in certain fields like culture and linguistics, etc. The levels of the general courses are regulated by the European regulations with a common frame reference, and the novelty that we bring, aside from our quality, methodology, and leadership of the Instituto Cervantes, is that we also offer online courses. We offer online courses with the same methodology and the same path.
Con el mismo recorrido.
The Instituto Cervantes hopes to also soon start teaching in pontifical universities as well as Italian schools. Italian 25-year-old Sister Cristina is now famous in Italy after winning The Voice of Italy. It's a reality show similar to American Idol or Britain's Got Talent. On June 6th, the member of the Ursuline Sisters of the Holy Family shocked the nation with her voice and her victory. But is this a proper way of evangelizing, and where do the dangers lie?
Entering into particular zones which might be typically uncomfortable or even unfamiliar to us, as The Voice, as this show, is a part of the new evangelization. It's about entering into these uncomfortable zones and these unfamiliar zones and trying to take those opportunities to bring the faith and to bring Christ. But to do so, one has to make sure that they don't lose their identity in entering into those zones. And what I thought
nel mio cuore, lasciandomi ricordo di un forte temporale.
One of the aspects that was so beautiful to see in the dynamic of the show is that as Sister Cristina was singing, you saw her other sisters that were there cheering her on. And again, I think it was such a beautiful sign of how we evangelize and we keep our identity as Catholics and in Christ by the support of others in faith. And we saw that with Sister Cristina and with her other sisters, which I thought was a great, great image of the fact that as Catholics we don't journey alone, that we enter into the periphery together so that we keep our identity and we seek to change those peripheries on the grounds of faith and to not be changed by them. So that faith is to change the world, faith is not to be changed by the world.
Sister Cristina sent a video message for the Good News Festival competition held in Rome on June 14. She took part in the show last year and also won it.
In today's world, because of the social media and all the different venues that there are many different arenas now that are just new to us, that we're starting to even just understand and to learn. And as Archbishop Fisichella speaks about all the time, these new social medias are also new forms of culture that we have to engage in, because there's a whole different language now, cultural language that the youth are experiencing. And so that's what Sister Cristina entered into.
St. John Paul II was the Pope who created the famous World Youth Day gatherings. He did, of course, have some help. Cardinal Paul Joseph Cordes actually came up with the idea.
Die Idee, einen Weltjugendtag zu machen,
the idea of creating a World Youth Day came from the spiritual movement of young people from Rome during the special Holy Year from 1983 to 1984. They said, we have to make a meeting with young people. And I suggested it to him, since I had heard that John Paul II had an intensive encounter with young people. And he immediately accepted. And so the first World Youth Day happened in 1984. It wasn't so easy because many of the world's dioceses did not understand why we suddenly, as Pontifical Council for the Laity, wanted to organize the youth. And we also received criticisms from bishops. They would say, it is not up to Rome to organize this, but there were the spiritual movements, who had contacts all around the world. They warned many people, and 300,000 young people came to Rome. And it was a great experience for the Pope, and it was a great blessing for all of us. He spoke dynamically to the youth, and he motivated them to draw the world closer through their faith. It was always easy to work with John Paul. He was very sensitive towards young people.
When World Youth Day went to Denver in 1993, John Paul II took the United States by storm.
The young people of the world came to Denver and transformed it. From a city that was perceived as being very modern, postmodern, profoundly secularized. After 1993, it became a city of conversion, the experience of conversion on the part of many of these young people, a place in which they experienced faith and hope and love in a way that they had not anticipated. It was they who changed Denver. It was they who made Denver into a city of hope, Denver gave a measure of hope to the world. It was like Denver being, from a spiritual point of view, before '93, a no place, and after the young people came, and the interaction with the people of the archdiocese and the wider population, we found ourselves in the midst of a profound experience of the presence of God in a secularized city. And that changed everything. The Pope left. Before he left, he perceived it as a revolution. And he was happy as he left Denver on Sunday, August the 15th. The Roman Curia was dumbstruck by the experience.
The next World Youth Day will take place in 2016 in Krakow, Poland.